I felt his weight pressing me deeper into the couch cushions, his breath hot against my neck as his fingers traced the curve of my waist. "Are you sure about this?" he whispered, his voice rough with desire. I pulled him closer, my body already answering before my mind could catch up. "I've been thinking about this all night," I breathed against his ear. His hands found the hem of my dress, sliding it higher as I arched beneath him, every nerve ending alive with anticipation. Понравилось? Начало? Ставьте лайк, подписывайтесь, пишите в комментариях, что вас зацепило. I hadn't planned for Xavier to end up on my couch tonight. He was just my friend Maya's roommate, the quiet bartender, who always seemed to linger in the background when I visited their place. But when Maya had to leave town unexpectedly for a family emergency, and Xavier mentioned his air conditioning was broken, I found myself offering my spare room without thinking twice. "You sure you don't mind?" he'd asked, running a hand through his dark hair as we stood in Maya's doorway. There was something different about him tonight, more confident, more present. Maybe it was being away from Maya's watchful eye, or maybe it was the way the evening light caught the sharp angle of his jaw. "It's just one night," I said, trying to ignore the flutter in my stomach. "Besides, it's too hot to sleep without AC." By the time we reached my apartment, the tension between us was undeniable. I poured us both wine, and we settled onto my couch, ostensibly to watch a movie. But neither of us was paying attention to the screen. Every casual brush of his fingers against mine as he reached for his glass sent electricity through my skin. Every shared glance lingered a moment too long. "You know," Xavier said, setting his wine aside and turning to face me fully, "I've always wondered what it would be like to have you all to myself." The words hung in the air between us, heavy with possibility. My heart raced as I met his gaze, seeing the hunger there that matched my own. "And what would you do with me?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. His answer came not in words but in action. He reached for me, his hands framing my face as he pulled me toward him. The first kiss was gentle, exploratory, but it quickly deepened as we both gave into what had been building between us all evening. His lips were warm and demanding, tasting of wine and something uniquely him. I pressed closer, my hands fisting in the fabric of his shirt as he traced his tongue along my lower lip. A soft moan escaped me, and I felt him smile against my mouth. His hands moved to my waist, pulling me across the couch until I was straddling his lap, feeling the solid warmth of him beneath me. "God, Lily," he murmured against my throat, his lips trailing fire along my skin. "You have no idea how long I've wanted this." I tilted my head back, giving him better access as his mouth worked magic along the column of my neck. "Show me," I whispered, my fingers already working at the buttons of his shirt. He didn't need to be asked twice. His hands found the zipper at the back of my dress, sliding it down with agonizing slowness. The fabric pooled around my waist, and I shivered as the cool air hit my heated skin. But Xavier's hands were there immediately, warming me, exploring every newly exposed inch with reverent touches. "You're beautiful," he said, his voice thick with desire as his eyes roamed over me. His hands cupped my silhouette, his thumbs brushing over the sensitive peaks until I gasped and pressed closer to him. I could feel him responding beneath me, his body tense with barely controlled need. I shifted against him, drawing a sharp intake of breath from his lips. The friction sent waves of pleasure through me, and I found myself moving against him more deliberately, chasing the sensation. "Not here," he said suddenly, his hands stilling my movements. "Not on the couch." Before I could protest, he was lifting me, his arms strong around me as he carried me toward my bedroom. I wrapped my legs around his waist, pressing kisses along his jaw as he walked. The feeling of being held so securely, so desired, sent another rush of heat through my core. He laid me gently on the bed, his eyes never leaving mine as he finished unbuttoning his shirt and let it fall to the floor. In the dim light filtering through my curtains, his chest looked carved from shadow and moonlight. I reached for him, running my hands over the firm planes of his torso, feeling the way his muscles jumped under my touch. "Your turn," I said, sitting up to push my dress the rest of the way off. His breath caught as I revealed myself completely to him, no barriers left between us. He joined me on the bed, his weight settling over me as he captured my lips again. This kiss was different, hungrier, more urgent. His hands roamed my body with purpose now, finding every spot that made me arch and gasp beneath him. When his mouth followed the path his hands had traced, I felt myself melting into the mattress. He took his time with me, his lips and tongue exploring every curve and valley. When he reached the sensitive spot between my thighs, I cried out, my fingers tangling in his hair as waves of pleasure washed over me. He was patient, skillful, drawing out my reactions until I was trembling beneath him. "Please," I gasped, tugging him back up to me. "I need you." He positioned himself above me, his eyes searching mine for any hesitation. Finding none, he joined with me slowly, carefully, giving me time to adjust to him. The sensation was overwhelming. The stretch, the fullness, the perfect friction as he began to move. We found our rhythm together, a dance as old as time but somehow new between us. His movements were deep and steady, each thrust sending sparks through my entire body. I met him stroke for stroke, my hips rising to welcome him deeper. "You feel incredible," he groaned against my ear, his breath hot on my skin. "So perfect." His words sent another jolt of pleasure through me, and I felt myself climbing toward release. But he seemed to sense it, slowing his pace, drawing out the anticipation until I was nearly sobbing with need. "Not yet," he whispered, his lips brushing mine. "I want to feel you like this as long as possible." He shifted our position, rolling us so I was on top. The change in angle sent new sensations rippling through me as I settled onto him. From this position, I could control the pace, the depth, the angle of our connection. I began to move, finding the rhythm that felt best, watching his face as pleasure tightened his features. His hands gripped my hips, guiding my movements but letting me lead. The feeling of power, of being able to affect him so deeply, was intoxicating. I experimented, with different angles, different speeds, delighting in the way his breath caught or the soft sounds he made. "God, yes," he breathed, his eyes locked on mine. Just like that. I could feel the tension building in both of us, that coiled spring of desire winding tighter with each movement. When he reached between us, his fingers finding that sensitive bundle of nerves, I cried out, my body arching as the sensation threatened to overwhelm me. "Come for me," he urged, his voice rough with his own approaching release. "I want to feel you." His words were my undoing. The wave crashed over me, pleasure radiating from my core to every extremity. I called his name as my body clenched around him, riding the crest of sensation as it washed through me again and again. He followed me over the edge, his hands gripping me tighter as his own release claimed him. I felt the warmth of him filling me, the pulse of his completion triggering another smaller wave in my own body. We clung to each other as the aftershocks subsided, our bodies slick with perspiration and trembling with the intensity of what had just passed between us. For long moments we lay entwined, catching our breath. His fingers traced lazy patterns on my back as I rested my head on his chest, listening to the steady thrum of his heartbeat gradually slow to normal. "That was," he began, then trailed off, seeming to search for words. "Unexpected," I finished for him, lifting my head to meet his gaze. He smiled, his hand coming up to brush a strand of hair from my face. The best kind of unexpected. But even as I smiled back, a small knot of anxiety was forming in my stomach. What did this mean for my friendship with Maya? Would she feel betrayed if she found out? Xavier must have sensed my sudden tension because his expression grew concerned. "Hey," he said softly. "What's wrong?" I sighed, settling back against his chest. "I'm just thinking about Maya. She's my best friend and you're her roommate. This complicates things." His arms tightened around me. "It doesn't have to. What happened between us tonight? It's separate from that. Maya would understand." "Would she?" I asked, voicing the fear that was gnawing at me. "I'm not so sure." Xavier was quiet for a moment, his hand stroking my hair. "Look," he said finally. "Maya's been trying to set us up for months. She's always making comments about how we'd be good together, leaving us alone together, accidentally double-booking plans so we end up hanging out." I blinked, processing this information. Now that he mentioned it, there had been quite a few coincidences lately. "You think she's been matchmaking?" "I know she has," he said with a chuckle. "She told me last week that she thought I should ask you out, but I wasn't sure if you'd be interested." Relief flooded through me, washing away the guilt and anxiety. If Maya had been trying to bring us together, then maybe this wasn't the betrayal I'd feared it was. Maybe it was exactly what she'd been hoping for. "She never said anything to me," I said, but I was smiling now. "That's Maya for you. Subtle, as a brick when she wants something to happen." We laughed together, the tension broken, but the laughter died as we looked into each other's eyes, the desire sparking between us again. Without words, Xavier rolled us over, positioning himself above me once more. "Round 2? He asked, his voice already rough with renewed arousal. In answer, I pulled his head down to mine, claiming his lips in a kiss that left no doubt about my feelings. This time, our joining was less urgent, but no less passionate. He took his time, exploring my body again, as if memorizing every response, every sound I made. When he finally entered me again, it was with a slow, deliberate thrust that had me gasping and arching beneath him. The pace he set was languid, almost lazy, each movement calculated to drive me slowly out of my mind with pleasure. I love the way you respond to me, he murmured against my throat, his lips vibrating against my skin as he spoke. The little sounds you make, the way your body moves with mine. His words were as arousing as his touch, and I found myself climbing toward another peak even faster than before. But this time, he didn't tease or delay. When I reached the edge, he was right there with me, and we tumbled over together, our cries mingling in the darkness of my bedroom. Afterward, we lay tangled together, thoroughly spent. Xavier's arm was wrapped around me, holding me close against his side. I could feel sleep pulling at me, but part of me didn't want to give in to it. I didn't want this night to end, didn't want to face the reality of morning and what it might bring. Stay, I whispered, though he hadn't made any move to leave. I wasn't planning on going anywhere, he replied, pressing a kiss to the top of my head. I must have dozed, because the next thing I knew, gentle fingers were tracing along my spine, slowly bringing me back to consciousness. The room was still, dark, but I could sense that it was the deep darkness of very early morning. Again? I asked sleepily, already feeling my body responding to his touch. If you're not too tired, he said, his voice husky with sleep and desire. I turned in his arms, finding his lips in the darkness. This time was different again, slower, more tender, filled with an intimacy that went beyond the physical. We moved together like longtime lovers, anticipating each other's needs, finding a perfect synchronicity that left us both breathless and satisfied. When I woke again, pale dawn light was filtering through my curtains. Xavier was still beside me, his dark hair tousled against my pillow, his face peaceful in sleep. I took a moment to study him, this man who had been on the periphery of my life for so long, but who now felt essential to it. As if sensing my gaze, his eyes opened, focusing immediately on mine. "Good morning," he said, his voice rough with sleep. "Good morning," I replied, suddenly shy despite everything we'd shared. He reached out, his fingers tracing the line of my jaw. "Any regrets?" I considered the question seriously. Did I regret what had happened between us? The answer came easily. "None," I said firmly. "You?" "Only that it took us so long to get here," he said, leaning in to brush his lips against mine. The kiss was soft, sweet, full of promise for what might come next. But even as I melted into it, I couldn't help but think about the practical considerations. What happened now? Where did we go from here? I should probably head back to Maya's place. Before she gets home, Xavier said, echoing my thoughts. "Get my story straight about the broken air conditioning." "Is that what we're calling this?" I asked with a smile. "Air conditioning repair?" He laughed, the sound rich and warm in the morning air. "Among other things." We got up reluctantly, both of us moving slowly as if we could delay the moment when he had to leave. I made coffee while he gathered his scattered clothes, and we shared a quiet breakfast at my kitchen table. It felt domestic, comfortable, like something we'd been doing for years instead of hours. "I want to see you again," Xavier said as he prepared to leave. "Not just as Maya's roommate, but as this, whatever this is." "I'd like that too," I said, meaning it completely. He kissed me goodbye at my door, a lingering embrace that promised this was just the beginning. After he left, I leaned against the closed door, a smile playing on my lips. My phone buzzed with a text message, and I glanced at it absently. It was from Maya. How did things go with Xavier last night? Did my little matchmaking scheme finally work? I stared at the message, then burst into laughter. She'd known exactly what she was doing when she left us alone together. Far from being upset about what had happened, she'd practically orchestrated it. I texted back, "Your matchmaking skills are more effective than you know. We'll talk when you get back." Her response was immediate. "Yes, finally. I've been waiting for months for you two to figure it out." Looking back, I realized that Maya had seen something between Xavier and me, that we'd been too cautious or oblivious to acknowledge ourselves. She'd simply created the opportunity for us to discover it. The guilt I'd felt about potentially betraying, our friendship evaporated completely, replaced by gratitude for her insight and her caring interference. That evening, Xavier texted me, "Dinner tomorrow? Somewhere that's not your couch or my broken air conditioning?" I smiled as I typed back, "It's a date," and it was, the first of many, as it turned out. What had started as an unexpected night of passion had blossomed into something deeper, something real. Maya, of course, took full credit for bringing us together, and we were happy to let her. After all, without her meddling, we might never have found each other. Sometimes the best things in life come from the most unexpected moments. A broken air conditioner, a friend's emergency, a night that starts with good intentions and ends with so much more. Xavier and I learned that taking a chance on something uncertain can lead to the most beautiful certainty of all. 6 months later, when Maya moved out to live with her boyfriend, Xavier didn't need to look for a new roommate. He moved in with me instead, and my spare room became his office. The couch where it all began became our favorite place to curl up together on quiet evenings, remembering the night that changed everything. What started as helping a friend's roommate find a cool place to sleep became the beginning of the most passionate relationship of my life. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if I'd just recommended a hotel instead, but I'm grateful every day that I didn't. Some invitations are meant to be extended, some boundaries are meant to be crossed, and some nights of passion are meant to become forever. Have you ever had a moment where you took a chance that completely changed your life? Where being spontaneous led to something you never expected? I'd love to hear your stories in the comments. Sometimes the best adventures start with just saying yes to the unexpected. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you never miss a story. Trust me, you won't want to miss what's coming next.